leaders, the president highlighted 4 specific GOP proposals he's interested in pursuing as part of health reform, including Oklahoma Senator Tom Coburn's idea of using undercover agents to investigate fraud and abuse by health providers in federal programs like Medicare and Medicaid. Spies. He wants spies. Also, thank you. Ixnay on the I spay uzik may. All right. Also, the president endorsed helping states come up with different ways to resolve medical malpractice complaints, an idea that the president says has been included in bills sponsored by 5 congressional Republicans. The president also considering increasing reimbursements made to doctors who treat Medicaid patients based on concerns raised by Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa, as well as expanding health savings accounts as suggested by Senator John Barrasso of Wyoming. The response from the Republican leadership to the president endorsing all of these ideas was roughly, they just essentially gave him a raspberry. It's called not taking yes for an answer. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell firing off a letter to the president in which he demanded that Democrats scrap the health reform bills that have passed both houses of Congress, even if they are changed to include these Republican ideas that the president is endorsing. Senator McConnell also, of course, denouncing the idea that Democrats use budget reconciliation rules to pass reform with a simple majority in order to get around the Republican filibuster. Meanwhile, not only does it seem clear that health reform is going to be passed using those reconciliation rules, it also seems possible that what passes by reconciliation may include the public option, the popular measure that passed the House but was traded away in return for votes that never materialized in the Senate. The effort to put the public option back into the Senate bill has followed a letter written last month calling for a simple majority vote for the public option in the Senate. The letter was initially made public with just 4 signatures on it, those of Senator Michael Bennet of Colorado, Kirsten Gillibrand of New York, Jeff Merkley of Oregon, and Sherrod Brown of Ohio. The letter has been picking up support ever since. The latest co-signers are Mark Udall, Colorado's other senator, Bob Casey of Pennsylvania, Ron Wyden of Oregon, and Ted Kaufman of Delaware. That brings the grand total after just 2 weeks to 34. 34 senators are now publicly calling for a return of the public option by a means by which it really could be achieved. 34 down, 16 to go. The interview tonight is with the freshman senator who wrote that letter about the public option, Senator Michael Bennet of Colorado. Senator Bennet, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Rachel.
What was your goal when you decided to write this letter? Was the goal to get 50 senators to sign on?
I think that would be great, and that is one of the goals. But the other thing was that it was happening at a time when I think there was a view from some of the special interests in Washington that health care was dead. That view being reflected, by the way, in notices to to policyholders in California and other places raising rates by 40% and 25% and 30%. And I just thought it was important to remind people that we're not dead yet.
There's also a public option revival letter that's circulating on the House side, that effort being led by Shelley Pingree and Jared Polis, who's also from Colorado. How important was Jared Polis in your decision to take charge of the effort in the Senate?
Well, I think Jared's a great guy, and he called me and told me that he had done the letter. It sounded like a great idea to me, and we started circulating it.
In August of last year, Senator, you told a Colorado paper, the Durango Herald, I think it was, that health reform shouldn't hinge on the public option, even though you said you supported it. I know you told the Denver Post that you didn't think the public option could pass. You told the Durango paper that you didn't want to use it to draw a line in the sand on health reform. Do you feel more strongly about it now than you did then?
Well, I feel very strongly about it. I felt strongly about it then, and I feel strongly about it now. I don't think anybody's got a monopoly on wisdom on any of this stuff, but I think the American people are looking for us, and certainly the people of Colorado are looking for us to stop playing these ridiculous political games and actually start to solve the problems that they're facing every single day in their lives. One of the great ironies, Rachel, to me about this debate is that the people that are defending the current system and saying that somehow this is a Bolshevik takeover of our healthcare system are defending a system that every day is throwing thousands of people off private insurance, and they're ending up in one of 2 places. If they're poor enough, they're ending up on Medicaid, a public plan. If they're not poor enough, they're ending up in the emergency room getting uncompensated care that all of us that are taxpayers are paying for and policyholders are paying for. They're the ones that are defending a government takeover of health care. It's just the most expensive, least intentional version imaginable. And I think we've got to keep fighting to tell a story on behalf of the American people that says it's time to do something different.
How does the public option fit into that in terms of the big picture of the what you describe as the unwarranted criticism from the right that this is some sort of Bolshevik takeover, the commitment on the Democratic side to get something done? Where does the public option fit into that in terms of importance and in terms of the basics of what government is trying to do here?
I think it is important for two particular reasons. One is it injects competition into the system where in too many parts of our country there is none. And then there's a more practical reason, which is people are saying to me in my state, they're saying, Michael, if you're going to require us to have health insurance, then I'd like to have the broadest array of options to choose from for my family. Let me decide what the right thing for my family is. As the father of 3 little girls, I certainly would like the ability to make that decision myself. And fortunately, I don't need to because I'm on a public option, just like all the people sitting around the table the other day at the White House. But for our families, if you're going to require them to have insurance, they want to have all the choices. So I think it is very important. I also think there are other components of health care reform that are enormously important when it comes to cost and when it comes to coverage. And if there's a combination of things that can help cover more Americans, drive down our costs, increase our quality, I'm all ears to everybody's ideas, but I think a public option is one of the best ideas that we've had so far.
Senator Bennet, I should also ask you about something that we've just learned about. It's just happened in the last few minutes. The bill that was held up by Senator Bunning all week to dramatic and strange effect has finally passed overwhelmingly, 78-19. What do you make of Senator Bunning's actions here? What happened?
Well, that's a real nail-biter, isn't it? After a week of holding up the work of the Senate. I can't explain what he was doing. It's not the first time, by the way, this has happened. We had another vote to extend unemployment insurance in the worst recession since the Great Depression. 10% unemployment rate, and people on average have been unemployed longer than ever. We tried to extend unemployment insurance, could have taken an afternoon. Instead, it took 5 weeks, and the vote was something like 97-0 or 98-0. And now we've just been through another week like this, and all I can say is that this place, I've been here for a year, and it does feel a lot like Alice in Wonderland. It doesn't make any sense.
Senator Bennet, I understand you're going to announce a wide-ranging plan for some congressional reforms, including some filibuster reforms. You want to sneak preview any of those for us?
Well, I'll just give you a little bit of it. I mean, I think, first of all, that having things like the ability to do holds anonymously, where senators don't even need to step up in front of the American people and say, I'm the person that's holding up a nomination or a piece of legislation. I think we should get rid of that. I think we should think very seriously about how to reduce the thresholds that are required when it's clear that delay is the only thing that's happening. And I think finally that there are some interesting ideas about how to try to create some bipartisan effort around here, around the filibuster. So tomorrow I'll be talking about that and some other reforms, including trying to make sure that members of Congress are banned from ever being lobbyists in Washington.
Senator Michael Bennet of Colorado, Democrat of Colorado. We look forward very much to that announcement tomorrow, and I thank you for joining us tonight. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me, Rachel.
In some ways, it seems like the Democratic Party doesn't know what hit it. On last night's show, the chairman of the Democratic National Committee, Tim Kaine, joined us and told us that he'd only just heard the news that the lieutenant governor of Arkansas, Bill Halter, had announced a primary challenge against one of the most conservative Democrats in the Senate, Blanche Lincoln.
I just learned within the last couple hours about the situation in Arkansas and haven't really dug into that one very much.
Now, Mr. Kaine is a very busy man as chairman of the Democratic Party, lots of responsibilities, and to be fair, we totally did not book him to talk about the race in Arkansas. There's no reason he should have been super familiar with Mr. Halter's announcement that he would primary Blanche Lincoln. But thousands of liberals across the country were super familiar with Mr. Halter's announcement by the time that show aired, and liberals have already introduced the newly minted candidate to their wallets in a really big way. MoveOn.org yesterday said they hope to raise $500,000 for Mr. Halter in a week. That goal was blown out of the water in less than a day. So now they upped the ante. MoveOn has doubled their fundraising goal for Mr. Halter to $1 million, of which they have raised $920,000 as of about an hour ago. Act Blue has also continued to rake in the dough for Bill Halter, about $160,000